let's also get ready. All right, so we're starting now, and I'm going to call our panel members in the chair.
The chair is you can't see it's online. Chairs are listen, we talk, then everybody else is I didn't see Kamga, but I've asked them to feed the screen on the phone. So he knows Kapapa. So and then everybody else. Now because the only person she's there already.
This one too is there.
Yes. This one is India. So because he's the only one in the room, I will join him. So once I get the
Right, ladies and gentlemen, so we are all set and starting the second session, second panel session in this conference. So this session we are focusing on is on the title or the theme, leveraging NRENs for meteorological and climate research. And we are happy to say we have some panel members online and others on site. So here we are going to have as our chair Dr. Arona Diodu. Interestingly, our chair is online, right? And then we have as our panel members Dr. Julian Sansa Otim of Makerere University. She's also online. You begin to see them very soon. And then we have Dr. Andre Kamga. Dr. Andre Kamga. And then we have Prof. Kehinde Ojunjobi. Prof is here. So let's welcome Prof to the panel seat. Please put hands together for Prof. And we also have Dr. Amos Kaboba. Dr. Amos Kaboba is online at the moment. And to join Prof on site is Omo Oaya of WACREN. Put your hands together for Omo as he joins Prof in the seat here. All right, so I guess I can hand over to Dr. Arona. Is Dr. Arona online? If Dr. Arona can hear us. So let me take the opportunity to announce that tonight we are all going to plus 233. Plus 233 is a jazz place, a bar center where we're going to have our gala dinner. So our gala dinner will not be held here. It will be held at plus 233. So this is what is going to happen. Those of us who came from the gallery apartment and Embassy Gardens, the bus will pick you from there and take you straight to plus 233. Those of us who are lodging here or the environs, we all gather here. So we'll be here and the bus will ferry us to plus 233. So please, the time the bus is leaving at exactly 6:30. At exactly 6:30. So please ensure you are around at the lobby area by 6:30. So the bus will take us to plus 233. I think 2019. Those of you who were here in 2019, you had a very nice time. Yeah, Leila was around. It's an exciting place. I'm sure all our friends from across Africa and Europe, you're going to enjoy plus 233. So it's happening tonight, and we want to have you join us. And also, if you haven't tweeted yet, you want to tweet, just take a selfie photo of yourself or your delegate, the fellow delegate you came with, and just hashtag WACREN 2023. WACREN 2023, let us know, let the whole world know what is happening in here. So the hashtag is WACREN 2023. And if you are not connected to the internet yet, please, you can look out for the SSID WACREN 2023 and then type in the password WACREN 2023 so you can get connected. Those of you who are already on Eduroam, I'm sure you are already connected on and you are having your messages coming through. So we'll just wait a brief moment and then we'll have the session started. And a reminder that tomorrow we are back here tomorrow so today, let me just take you through what we'll be doing from now to the end. After this session, we'll have a short coffee break and then we'll come back for the third session for the day, titled Scalable Platforms for Digital Education. scalable platforms for digital education. And we will end that one and prepare for the dinner. But tomorrow, we're gathering here at 9 o'clock. We'll have our closing keynote. Then we have session 4, which is themed how to improve open science infrastructure in Africa. We'll have a coffee break, and then we'll have the workshop update. So we have rapporteurs who are taking minutes, notes here. Tomorrow, we'd like to give an update of what has happened the whole week. So, for instance, Monday, we were at the University of Ghana. From Monday through to Wednesday, we were at the University of Ghana, having the WACREN ICTP IoT workshop. We had about 30 or so people joining us, and they can tell you that they had a very nice time trekking University of Ghana and Ghana Meteorological Center service. It was a very wonderful time installing weather stations and all that. We're going to share the photos and the videos with you very soon. We'll share a link with you so you can download the photos and the videos. But we have reports that it was a very engaging, very, very engaging time. Yesterday we had the Ghana STARS session, the day of commercialization and open infrastructure session here. The room was full. It was a very, very great time having interaction with all stakeholders, groups, people, and institutions who are interested in research commercialization, which is actually making waves elsewhere and taking center stage in our side of the world too. Then we also had the IOI session, a session on open infrastructure. That was also quite engaging. And so tomorrow, we'll give you an update of what happened from Monday through to today. Again, we want to acknowledge our sponsors. We are privileged to have as our platinum sponsor Invest in Open Infrastructure, IOI. And then we had ICANN coming on board to take the silver spot. We also had Naseni of Nigeria coming on board just today. And then Dolphin Telecom also joining the category, the silver category. And then we had Vodafone taking the connectivity sponsor. So next year we are hoping to have more telecommunication companies joining the sponsorship batch. Are we ready now? We are ready. Okay. I think the audience is also ready. So we should be able to start now.
They don't hear us.
Oh, okay.
In 2023, can you hear the online panelists?
I can hear you, Dr. Julian.
Great.
Okay, good that you can hear us.
We would have loved to see your faces, though, if you don't mind. Yeah.
Okay.
So you see,
I can see you. We can see you, Dr. Aruna.
Okay, so that's great. That's great. So let's start. You hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. And we can see
Okay, so
Dr. Kaboba and Dr. Sansautim. All right, so you're all set. Doc Aruna, you can take over now.
Okay, so thank you again very much for inviting me to chair this session with a great panel composed by honorable and excellent scientists engaged every day in capacity building to support African scientists in their research, and also to try to build a real research infrastructure for the sustainable development in Africa. So before they introduce themselves, I just want to make a short introduction, based on my own experience as a IPCC expert. I was involved in the 1.5 special report of IPCC as a lead author, and also for the last IPCC report, I was review editor of a chapter. And what I can say is that, you know, the international climate community is engaged in major program of environmental assessment to contribute to IPCC, UNCCD, and IPBES. But if you look at the results on which we based our assessments, we can see that Africa produced only 2% of research results and only 1% of the capacity at global level. And in the field of climate and environmental science in general, the contribution of African researchers to the advance of science, you know, at international level, I mean, is very low. You know, it's not really visible. So Africa is the most affected by the effect of climate change. But when we look at those who are contributing to those assessment reports, again, we can see that African scientists, you know, those scientists that come from Africa are very low. You know, they are not well represented. Why Africa is the most who is affected by the effect of climate change. So this is not because African researchers are not working. I can tell you that we have excellent scientists doing a good job, you know, but because they are daily facing handicaps that make them less competitive at international level. And the major one, you know, which can explain this weakness is the lack of efficient national research and education network. So the aim of this panel is to exchange on how we can change the situation. What is the problem? How we can leverage from the NRN, I mean, to support environmental and climate research in Africa. So what I suggest, you know, is first to make a round table so that everyone will introduce himself, and then everyone will take the mic and just explain what is the problem, and you know, and how this NRN is strategic or is impactful for his own research activities or for the research activities of his community. So I will start by let's go to Professor André Kamga of ACMAD. André, you have the floor. Just to introduce yourself and say a few words, and we will come back to you later. So thank you. André? André, okay. So maybe we can move to Professor Kehinde Ogunjobi of WASCAL. Prof. Kehinde, are you here?
Okay. Good afternoon, participants, and good afternoon, Chair. It's my pleasure to be here, and my name is Kehinde Ogunjobi, a professor of meteorology and climate science from WASCAL, and I'm the current director of research of the WASCAL Competence Center that is based in Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso. Mr. Chair, it's nice to also see you here this afternoon to chair this session, as Professor Aruna is also our former chairman of the Scientific Advisory Committee of WASCAL. So it's a kind of a reunion for me and Prof here this afternoon. Okay, so I will stop here as a brief intro. I think when I'm called upon, I will let you know what more we do at WASCAL. Thank you very much, Chair. Back to you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So let's go to Professor Julian. Hello.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, WACREN 2023. It's a pleasure for me to be here as well. My name is Julian Sansa Otim, and I'm a senior lecturer in computer networks at Makerere University. I also lead the IoT lab, whose original name was the WIMEA lab because of the first big project that we implemented weather information management in East Africa through the application of suitable ICTs. So I'm a computer scientist by training, but for the last 10 years, from 2013, I was the principal investigator of a multidisciplinary project applying different technologies to weather information management, including customizing automatic weather stations, building WRF models for the East African region, and building weather information dissemination systems, both mobile and web-based applications for the last mile access to weather information. And we did this in Uganda, Tanzania, and South Sudan. So it's a pleasure to be part of this panel to share our experiences in leveraging NRENs to meteorological research. Back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julian. Thank you again for accepting to join this session. We really need your experience. So now let's move to Dr. Kabuba.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I hope first you can hear me.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I think I'm very happy, and thanks to the team, the WACREN team, for inviting me for this particular session. For me personally, I think it's a very important section. I'm an associate professor for hydrology, so this is really core of my daily work. And at the University of Energy and Natural Resources, where I also act as the Dean for International Relations, I have, in one way or the other, kickstarted a number of things, two things. One was to establish a center, which is called the Earth Observation Research and Innovation Center, that is just looking at infrastructure for supporting climate research. Then the next one is, which was just recently commissioned, was the installation of a carbon monitoring tower for one of our forest reserves. Because I think, as we discussed along, one of the challenges we face as a continent is the in situ measurements that we need to at least integrate with other data that says that we are getting. So really happy to join this session and looking forward to how it goes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Prof. Kabuba. Let's now move to Professor Omo. Are you there?
Thank you, Chair. I hope I do not need very much introduction. I've only joined Professor Ogunjobi on the stand because he's not lonely, and so I can also provide the WACREN perspective on the discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It will be helpful to have you on board also. So, is Professor Kamga is there or not? Professor Andre Kamga? No, I think that he is not connected, right? So, okay, let's move forward. What I suggest, if you agree, is that you take 5 minutes maybe, and just explain your feedback. Your experience. Why do we need NREN? And for our climate and environmental research. And also, then in the next step, we'll come back to the solution. But now, for this first round discussion, just let's focus on what we are doing and how the lack of good NREN, or how the NREN may amplify the impact of what we are doing. So this is the first round table I want to have, and then in the second one, we will try to discuss about, what kind of solution maybe need to implement. Preferably inclusive solution, and then we see, how we can conclude, with positive message to our clients. Okay, so let's start with Professor Kehinde Ogunjobi explaining us what are activities ongoing in WASCAL, how they networks, their research, and what kind of problem they used to face, and what is the gaps they note in terms of Android. Yeah, please, Professor Kehinde, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. and Chair. Please, can I have my slides loaded, please? Ogunjobi. So while we are waiting for the slides to come up, let me, on behalf of the Executive Director of WASCAL, thank the organizer of the WACREN 2023 for inviting WASCAL to participate in the conference. Mr. Omo, thank you so very much for this opportunity. It's one that we really cherish in WASCAL, and we have been together since Monday, and it has been a very, very useful period with you. I think you were in my office in Waga for some time, and we hope to continue to drive this collaboration and this synergy forward. Thank you again for inviting us. Now, so I'm going to just give a small brief about WASCAL. I guess a number of us who have been working on the issues of climate change in West Africa will be very conversant with our institution called WASCAL. So WASCAL is the West African Science Service Center for Climate Change and Adapted Land Use. So we have our headquarters. So again, my name is Ogunjobi, and I really want to thank you also for listening to me. The WASCAL has a vision to train young academics and build capacity in climate change and land use research. WASCAL also developed climate and environmental services in improving livelihoods in West Africa. So these are major vision for the program. And WASCAL was established but in 2019 in partnership with the Federal Republic of Germany, who is our major funder, the Department of the Federal Ministry of Research and Higher Education. And we started our network in West Africa with 10 different countries, just to give an intro, in building capacity and developing young academics, in the area of climate change in our region. And I think in this area, our leveraging with some collaboration with WACREN is really very important, as I will say this as I move forward in my presentation. So we were formalized in Lomé in Togo in February of 2012. And now we have grown to about 10, 11 years in existence. And we have become a dedicated international center for climate and environmental science development and delivery in our region, West Africa. We are now flagship model of an international and regional cooperation within our region. So basically, WASCAL has 3 pillars, and I think this is an area where we are really in tandem with the objectives or the vision and mission of WACREN as a whole. Number 1 is that, of course, we develop climate and environmental services in the region in order to resolve basic challenges or major challenges of climate change in West Africa. We have a lot of challenge, issues of flood, drought, compound events like heat wave, etc., etc. So we conduct research, and our research, at the end of the day, we couple together in terms of policy brief, policy statement in, for citizens, for agencies, for stakeholders within the region in order to ameliorate the effect of climate change in our region. So one pillar is actually in the area of climate and environmental service development and delivery. Another major, now to achieve this, of course, we have the pillar of the capacity building. So here, WASCA has strong commitments to educate the next generation of scientists to attain an in-depth knowledge of different climate-related issues in order to help the region to develop sustainable strategies in resolving these problems. Then the next part of it is the climate research, which we conduct at the Competence Center that is based in Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso. And here, of course, we do a lot of activities in different areas of climate change, in finding solutions, to problems that are existing in our region and developing climate solutions to it, like I said, of course, in order to reduce the impact of, to mitigate the impact of climate change in our region. Now, the next slide I'm showing you is the WASCA climate change graduate programs, which we call the graduate programs, which we call the GSPs. And here we have 12 different thematic areas of climate change where WASCA builds capacity. For example, and the beauty of WASCA is that we have a wide coverage or a wide network within West Africa. So if WACREN in West Africa is going to look for an institution that has focal points in 13 of the 15 member countries of ECOWAS, I think WASCA is the next door that you should find a way to open. And Mr. Omo, I'm glad that you are seriously trying to open the door, and we are ready to open the door for you so that we can collaborate together. And in this area, the screen is mopping up the laser. Okay, so we have different thematics, like I said, of climate thematic area. For example, we build capacity at the PhD level, for example, in 2 centers of excellence, big centers of excellence in Nigeria. One is the PhD program in climate change and habitat at the Federal University of Technology in Mina. We also have another one on West African climate system at the Federal University of Technology in Accra, Nigeria. If you move to Ghana here, we have our program on climate change and land use at the Kwame Nkrumah University, KNUST, here in Ghana. If you go to Benin, for example, we have climate change and water resource. In the Gambia, I don't know if there are any representation from Gambia here. In Gambia, we are in the University of the Gambia, where we have our centers, a center of excellence on climate change and education. In Abidjan, we have climate change and biodiversity. So not to take your time, I can roll this out. We have 12 centers of excellence where we are building capacities in the area of climate science. I think the one that will very much interest you, Mr. Omo and colleagues here, is the center that we have in Joseph Kizebro's University in Ouagadougou, which focuses entirely on climate change and informatics. And here we are bringing young scientists in area of digital infrastructure in solving problems of climate issues in our region. Ladies and gentlemen, please permit me at this junction to see whether I know that some of our students and even alumni of our institutions are here in the hall. Please, if you are from WASCAL as a student or alumni, please can you just rise a few minutes? Honor me. Rise. Just rise, let's identify with you. Let's identify with you, please. Thank you so very much. Okay, so these are young capacity that we are building. Of course, Professor Aruna mentioned about the deficiencies in building capacity in the area of IPCC reports and even scientists that are representing us well as a region, even in the Conference of Parties. But I can inform you that our alumni are now serving as trainers to negotiators, even in our region, to better position West Africa in a good position at the COP meeting, for us to have the best of bargain, even from, in the COP agreement. We were represented very well in COP27 in Sham, and WASCAL took very prominent role in developing capacity and training negotiators from the region. Through ECOWAS, we were able to provide our technical resource results that we built from our capacity department, building department in training this. So these are areas where we have been trying to complement and bridge the gap that is existing in personnel and resource in the area of climate change in West Africa. Another area that we are interested in at WASCAL that we interest you is in the area of renewable energy and green hydrogen technology. This is an area that WASCAL is also making a giant stride. You know that green hydrogen technology is now in vogue as we are transiting away from fossil fuel into renewable energy and green hydrogen technology. So WASCAL is partnering with WACREN at the ECOWAS level, at the regional level, to produce even policy documents for West African to leverage into the green hydrogen technology. And I can assure you that we've got support from BMBF running to the tune of over 50 million euros in order to support green hydrogen development in West Africa. And this we are doing and leveraging on resource of renewable energy in, breaking, for example, using pyrolysis method to break your water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen, of course, in a simpler way to now produce your hydrogen. But it becomes green where you use renewable energy to do this activity and not depending on fossil fuel. So these are some of the areas that we are doing. And in this area, we have 4 master's schools where we are also building capacity, also in the area of green hydrogen and renewable energy technology. Now, in our research activities at the Competence Center, WASCAL has 5 major thematic areas, which is on the slide. One is on land use, land cover to climate change nexus. We also conduct research in risk and vulnerability to climate extremes, rural, urban, and cross-border migration in West Africa. This is a major challenge to us as it's causing, even as we believe that climate change is causing even these drivers and, creating insecurity problems in our region. So we are looking into that. Of course, we are looking into sustainable agriculture and climate smart agriculture. And like I said, finally, is an area that we are just leveraging on, which is the renewable energy and green hydrogen technology. And now, how do we look forward to collaborating and working with WACREN? Now we have multiples of digital infrastructure which help us to build our research scenarios, to drive our activities in WASCAL. You agree with me that there is no way you do anything on climate science that you are not going to be data-driven. Now, if you check the whole global map of the entire globe, it interests you that is in our region that you have the largest or the widest gap of data network within our region. So we are trying to see the possibility of now working with WACREN in order to use digital infrastructure, artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc., GIS, remote sensing, in order to use it to drive all our activities as I've earlier said, in capacity building and also in research. So we have a multidiscipline near-surface observation network, and it will interest you that we took part, myself and some of our colleagues from WASCAL. We were also at the training of the IoT, Internet of Things in terms of climate data from Monday to yesterday, Wednesday, at the University of Ghana. And at this junction, I also want to thank all our facilitators from ICTP for teaching us very well. And it was very, very useful. So we are trying to see how we can leverage on activities of WACREN in connectivity, as you will see later, because we have observation network that are scattered all over the region. We have the GIS and our remote sensing lab. We have HPCs and even data portal that we are using in training our students at the WASCA Competence Center. So all these, of course, you know that they are being driven by digital infrastructure. Without good connectivity, there is no way we can transmit our data from remote sense, even to our platform, to our server, for example, in Ouagadougou. So we really need we really cherish and looking forward to working with WACREN in helping us to build our digital infrastructure in order to train these young capacities, you know, in areas of in research and other areas of development in climate science. Of course, climate change is ravaging us, and I don't think any one of us we are ardent believer that climate change is real. And I don't think I need any lecture as a professor to tell you the essence of how we need to now conduct research so that we are not caught unawares. Of course, in the Sahel of West Africa, 4 of the major countries in Sahel of West Africa of Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, have been adjudged to be on the top 5 most vulnerable countries to climate change globally. Most vulnerable, top 5, right here with us in West Africa. So you see, we really need to work very hard such that, of course, we won't allow climate change to ravage much onto us. So I want to quickly delve into the WADI, which we call the WADI, which is the WASCAL data infrastructure. Is a multi-purpose infrastructure of hardware, software, and information technology service that is set up in WASCAL to enable collection, storage, management, sharing, and dissemination of primary and secondary research data relating to environmental and climate change in West Africa. So what we have there is, like we said, these domiciles in the Data Management Department of WASCAL, and I also have with me here the head of the department, Dr. Diallo. Please identify yourself. Dr. Diallo is the head of our Data Management Department in WASCAL that try to package all our activities in WASCAL to be ICT compliant. And I think, please help me to appreciate Dr. Diallo. He has been doing very well in order to get this done. And I think I will show you what we have been doing. So the first thing we have is of course, like I said, data is very important. And we have been trying to complement what we have on climate and hydrological data. So WASCA built its own network. We have a network of 60 automatic weather stations, which we distributed and hand over to the institutions that have the mandate in procuring climate and environmental data, which is the National Hydrometeorological Agencies, as it may be. But in order to partner with them, our funder, invested almost about 15 to 20 euros in procuring 60 automatic weather stations. 50 automatic weather stations, 50 automatic weather stations and 60 automatic hydro sensor, which we have handed over to those agencies. But the beauty of it is that all our network, the 50 automatic weather station and the 60 automatic hydro sensor, we all use digital network and digital infrastructure in archiving, in storing all our data from all the remote areas, because all the sensors are stationed in all the member countries in West Africa. But we have a server at the WASCA Competence Center that help us to manage and archive and manage all our data infrastructure. So one aspect of it is our observation network. And this we are doing in order for our students to have easy access to climate data. Not only the students, we have always also make this network to be open in nature so that even our partner scientists from other partner institutions can also have access to this data. And I'm happy to share with you that this data have been archiving on every 10 minutes for the past 6 years. And we have them all on our server at the WACREN Competence Center. So the beauty of it again is that if as a climate scientist you need data in the region, we can always be of help and assistance in sharing our open data network with colleagues in order to make our research go forward. So we also have what we call the WACREN Data Repository and Portal, where we also archive all the results of our students across all the 12 graduate schools and the 4 hydrogen, green hydrogen technology schools that we have in the region. So all the results, we also have them in a repository at the competence center. Please pardon me, I'm not an expert in computer science, I'm a meteorologist, but I will try as much as possible. But if you have any question, my colleague there is the ICT guy. He will be able to really answer your questions. I'm still on. So we have that repository, and then we have the HPC, which we have used to train our students, also in developing various scenarios. We have been running different models, global models. We are combining with ICTP to run different models using, for example, the RegCM. We run the RegCM model. We run the WRF model. We run the Cosmos model. We run even models now as part of our services to some national meteorological agency in making their forecast. We run models using different RCPs in, helping scientists and developing scenarios even for agriculturists, for environmentalists, for, different sectors, in the region, which we have been using the results of our students as kind of services in providing solutions, to this field. We also have a very robust GIS lab, not to waste your time much. I think I've used more than 5 minutes. Please, Mr. Chair, please pardon me, I'm almost rounding off. So this is the complete of WADI Pro platform at WASCAL. We are also into big data and artificial intelligence. Like I said, we have been using machine learning even to drive some of our research activities at the graduate school. We have a modeling and a computing and modeling support lab at the competence center. We also, of course, have talked about the HPC. As a matter of fact, in 2021, we developed what we call the HPC community of users in West Africa, because we discovered that we have low capacity, very, very low capacity in HPC usage. And I think this will interest you in WACREN. And these are areas that we think we can quickly work together and improve capacity in the usage of HPC. I think the one we have in the University of the Chair in Abidjan, maybe the chair will want to speak a little about it. Apart from Abidjan and for us in WASCAL, I'm not sure there are any research, I'm not sure, again, there are any research institution in our region, West Africa, that can boast of, we have 20 nodes of 20 nodes of clusters with about 10 to 12 processors per node. And you can know the enormous resource that we're having, just for our students to work on this. But these have always, it pains me. We pay for internet, we pay for service, we pay, to make this thing working, but very few capacity are using it. Very, very few capacity. And this area where we think that we can work with WACREN, in the area of developing the usage of HPC and building a very robust HPC community, in our region. Let me just keep this area. I think I've talked about that. Now, this is what we have as the 2020 update of the synoptic station in West Africa. You can see quite sparse. And of course, if this is not dense, there is little you can do. But in WASCAL, we have improved the densification of our network. Like I told you, these are the distribution of the automatic hydro sensors and the automatic weather stations in the region. We also have even 3 big basins where we take hydrological data. And all this, our idea is to make them really digital and ICT compliant in nature. And this is an area where we are looking. So our future digital transformation in WASCAL is as stated. Let me quickly go through. I think I have one more slide left. We want to now look into use of Internet of Things for making affordable and good quality smart observation, and also to densify our observation network in our region. It's very, very important. Whether, of course, you can talk, okay, it can be argued that you can use satellite data, you can use model data, you can use reanalysis data. But even all these still need ground truthing. You still need to ground truth them with ground observation. So we still need those ground observation for us to conduct research very well, in that area. And we think we can leverage with WACREN on the use of Internet of Things. Data science, artificial intelligence to drive our analysis, our prediction. We think it is important to open our data. If you go to meteorological agencies, hydrological agencies, all they do is to cover up. What for? I mean, this data, of course, I understand, I share their challenge. But WASCAL is driving all effort within our region to make sure that all our hydrometeorological data are open, to scientists, to students, to, partners, stakeholders that are interested in working on our data. We think cloud computing is also very important, and we are looking into that area. The last slide, ladies and gentlemen, I prepare a slide, Mr. Omo, to see areas where we think we can collaborate with WACREN. And at WASCAL, we believe that digital transformation of the climate change ecosystem is key to tackling climate change problems in West Africa. We have no other way than to go digital. WASCAL has methodologically and progressively built a strong multipurpose digital infrastructure of hardware, software, network resource, and information technological services over the past 10 years. We think the provision of internet connectivity at WASCAL Center of Excellence through the national RAIN is very, very important. And we are looking forward to this, such that all our 16 graduate schools can benefit from the facilities of WACREN. We are looking at the possibility of minimizing the loss of our data, because currently we use the GPRS, to remotely transmit our data from our remote sites to our server at the competence center. But we are looking for a more reliable means, and just in our training from Monday to Wednesday, we see now that we can use various, we have the LoRaWAN. Oh, did I remember? Yeah, okay. I'm still good. We still have the LoRaWAN, which we think is an improvement over using GPRS that we have been losing a lot of. In fact, we run into a lot of problem with connectivity using the SIM card, etc. So we think we can minimize this. Then collaborating with WACREN in the use of IoTs, I've mentioned that, and I think we are open to opening up our platform, and also federating sharing of climate data is an area we are looking forward to. They said seeing is believing. Just let me take you through some of our resources at the WASCAL Competence Center. This is our HPC lab. Oh, this is Mr. Omo during your visit to our office in Ouagadougou. Thank you for coming. Okay, we are also together here. I think this is our remote sensing lab, which we visited together. Okay, thank you so very much. I'm open to questions. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Kende, for this excellent talk. Yeah, I mean, it was really important that you take time to show that there are excellent things being done on the continent in terms of science and training. Thank you especially for showing all that WASCAL has to offer in terms of climate and environmental research that can be used for African universities and research centers, that can be also, shared with the young African scientists. But unfortunately, scientific cooperation between West African countries is not easy. Because of the internet connection within country and between countries. So it's a big problem. The lack of cooperation between, countries due to the poor quality of the internet network in the countries and between the countries has a huge cost, for our states, for our governments. It is, I read somewhere that it's made around several billions because you are obliged to move, and to be physically present, and also because many things are duplicated, whether it is the infrastructure or the data. There is also another issue that you raise, is the issue of the computing facility. You have also now, it's a big problem. You have also now a few countries that have this HPC, but it would be great if you can connect them. If you look at the terms of reference of all those, those facilities, they say that, okay, they have regional perspectives, but right now they are not connected. There is no African cloud, and it's a bit complicated also. And when you are doing, as you said, climate and environmental research, you make computing, you generate a lot of data. So our capacity of storage, in the continent is very poor. So this means that we need to go abroad, if you have good internet connection, to download the data. But the issue is that climate data are very big, difficult to download. So those are things that could be interesting to see how WACREN can help, African scientists to be more efficient and more visible, how WACREN can help Africa to be more attractive. Because if you come in Africa and you cannot be in interaction with science going outside or science going, another university, it's a problem. So I will stop here. Thank you again, Prof. Kende. I will come back to you later. Now let's move to Julian. Julian, I don't know if you have, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you very much. So Julian, I hand over to you. Thank you. Yes.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Let me share my slides first. I have a few slides. I have an error sharing my slides. I'm going to send them to Omo. Then Omo can help me project them. I'm getting an error sharing them from here.
Yeah, maybe they can allow you to share.
Yeah, they've already allowed me to share, but I still get an error. I think it's something to do with my,
So
it has failed to share. I have an error code and I can't debug it now because of time. So could somebody else go ahead of me? I share my slides with Omo and then he can share them from there. If you don't mind, because I'm having a challenge sharing them here.
Well, maybe you can share it to me. Oh.
I share it with you via the chat.
I don't know if it's possible by the chat. It's possible if yes. Yeah.
Let me share it by email. Let me just share it.
Email is better. Yeah.
Apologies about that delay.
Are you here?
Yes, I'm still here. I've sent it.
Okay, you send it right now. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Let me touch it.
Have you seen it?
It's unflug. No.
Sorry?
No. I don't receive it yet.
Dr. Julian, you are a co-host now, so you should be able to share your screen. So
Okay, I
make
get
another attempt.
I get it. So maybe can you try? Just try first. If you don't arrive, I can do it.
No, please do it. There are a few slides, so it won't be a lot of moving back and forth.
Okay, so Zoom tag.
So Dr. Julian, you are a co-host now, so you can try again yourself.
I receive an error message when I do that. I would need to debug something, and I don't think I have time to do that.
Okay, let me try to do that, right?
Yep.
Do you see my screen?
Yes, it's starting. Yes, that's it.
Thank
you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Maybe you can run it like full screen. They're just 3 slides really. So once again, I would also like to appreciate WACREN for the invitation to participate in this panel, to really share our experiences in work that I've been involved in for 10 years now. In my introduction, I forgot to mention that I also serve on the board for RENU, Research and Education Network for Uganda, and I also serve on the board for the Ubuntu Net Alliance, who are part of this conference. So, yeah, I am glad that they too are part of this conference, and that this work that I am sharing has actually been supported really by RENU in implementation, and by connection also by the Alliance, as I'll share. So we can go to the next slide. I altered this a little bit to say leveraging NRENs for for support of meteorological and environment monitoring research, because I have been involved in more than meteorological research, but monitoring other aspects of the environment which are not really meteorology, like I'll mention on one of my slides. So in brief, I know we're answering the question, what are the challenges that the NRENs can solve? And I'll best explain that or illustrate that by sharing our experiences from the WIMEA ICT project, which, as I mentioned briefly earlier, was a project that we ran from 2013 to 2020 with support from the Norwegian government under NORAD. And if anything that I say is of interest, you can find more detailed on the project website, wimeict.net. And this project was a collaborative effort between Makerere University, the University of Bergen in Norway, and Dar es Salaam Institute of Technology in Tanzania, as well as the University of Juba in South Sudan. So 3 countries in East Africa were involved: Uganda, Tanzania, and South Sudan. And in this effort, the side of the meteorological research that we were involved in went a long way in increasing the automation of the weather services. We also, like the previous speaker, worked hand in hand with the national meteorological agencies. And in Uganda, that's the Uganda National Meteorological Authority. In Tanzania, it's the Tanzania Meteorological Agency. And in South Sudan, it's the South Sudan Meteorological Department. And 4 of the areas in which automation was increased as a result of our research effort include the WIDS, which really is the Weather Information Dissemination System. So each of these 4 areas were identified during a feasibility study that was done just prior to getting the project funding. We had to do a feasibility study to illustrate the needs in the region. And one of the needs was the fact that weather information would not get down to the people that needed it, and particularly the farmers. And out of our research efforts, and I am mostly focusing on the output as far as the meteorological agency and the end user is concerned, but the effort involved were actually PhD and master's studies. But the direct result was on the side of the weather information dissemination system were mobile tools that were accessible, that were built based on the requirements given by the farmers. So, for example, in the initial stages as researchers, we thought, yeah, everyone is using a smartphone these days, so we need to develop a smartphone-based application, an Android app or something like that. But after talking with the farmers, we actually confirmed that that wouldn't be useful, and they needed a simple USSD-based application like we do for mobile money because of the nature of phones that they hold, because of their convenience, because of their cost, etc. And that's what we did. And at the time of handing these products to the Met Agency, the last count we had in Uganda, there were 16,000 farmers accessing the application every month and 28,000 farmers in Tanzania. I am sure these numbers have grown since then. And then the other challenge that was there was forecasting, weather forecasting. So at the time that we started this work in 2023, the weather forecasts that would be used in our countries, in the three countries, Uganda, Tanzania, and South Sudan, were based on what is modeled at the global meteorological centers and then downscaled. There was no real modeling done by the meteorologists in the country. They would simply downscale what was done at the global centers. And that was because there was no capacity, in addition to the fact that there was no computing infrastructure. And so, yeah, we did, we undertook 2 research studies, one customizing the forecast models for Uganda and another for Tanzania. So the WARF model was the basis for most of the modeling, although also Cosmos was used for comparison, but most of the efforts were done in the WARF modeling. And 2 years before we ended, actually, the customized models were what were now adopted and being used by the Met agencies in both Uganda and Tanzania. They were using the customized models that our graduates had developed for forecasting, especially the seasonal forecasts, as well as the 10-day, the decadal forecasts. And I'll relate these things to what the NREM's role was or continues to be after just illustrating the real challenges as far as the meteorological research is concerned. And then there was also an issue with the storage of the data. I think most of the meteorological agencies have been around for very long, more than a century, at least in the case of Uganda and Tanzania. And they had a lot of data that is in manual format. And that was one of the challenges that they had mentioned. And we went ahead to digitize some of the manual records, most of the manual records, and as well as build a weather data repository, WDR, and this was rolled out at least by the National Meteorological Authority in Uganda for storage of all their data, including the current data that they get from the synoptic stations, as well as the data that comes from the automatic stations. And that brings me to the last challenge that had been identified, which was similarly to what the previous speaker mentioned, that the weather station network was very, very sparse. And of course, that has an implication to the accuracy of the forecasts that are produced out of the data that comes from such a sparse network. And the situation was similar in East Africa. And because of the funding that we had, we implemented or rather we customized a low cost and low power automatic weather station whose maximum price was $2,000. So our choice per station. So our choice of the sensors, our choice of the electronics, our choice of many other things, the power was very much so informed by the cost, as well as informed by the other challenges such as the reliability and the accuracy. So we managed to hit that target, and our weather stations were under $2,000 each. And based on that, we were able to deploy 62 weather stations in the region, 30 in Uganda, 30 in Tanzania, and 2 in South Sudan. The target was actually 10 in South Sudan, but because of very limited capacity there, we only managed to deploy 2. So what was the role of the NREN? What continues to be the role of the NREN? And I say this, it's not across the board for all the 3 countries, but clearly the NREN had a role to play in connectivity. And on the right, I provide the map of Uganda showing RENU's network as of 2022. This network is very dynamic, and I am sure with the RENU representatives in the WACREN 2023, they can confirm that this map has changed because of additions and extras. But I provided this to show that the network pretty much covers the whole country. Of course, there are a few places like the extreme northeast that are not fully covered, but you see that this map covers a very big part of the country. And clearly for our connectivity, much as for the national meteorological authorities, they were using the GSM and GPRS connectivity, and that is what we also started out with because of the access. But in areas where the RENU network exists, such as the very first site where we were testing our custom-built weather station at the university in Makerere, we connected through the NREN. And towards the end of the project, when we got a bit of experience with the LoRa technology, we were actually able to also deploy a LoRa-enabled weather station. And that, of course, tapped into still the NREN network. Other areas, when you connect your automatic weather station, you need the data to go to some place. Initially, all this data was going to the weather data repository and still does, but over time, cloud storage is the way to go, and that is definitely a service that we can leverage from the NRENs. Then for the WRF modeling, our custom-built WRF models for forecasts in the region were run partly in the West when our students were in Norway, and then a bit on, our local arrangements with the HPC providers. But again, this is a service that can be smoothened out by the NREN because the NRENs they support most of these research institutions that have the HPCs, but also cloud. Some of the processing, some of the modeling can happen within the cloud, and the NREN still have the capacity and the infrastructure for cloud processing. So those are clearly areas that the NRENs can be leveraged for meteorological research. And one of our studies actually, beyond the East African area, one of our studies for a much smaller grant that ran for 1 year involved partners from West Africa, from Nigeria as well as from Ghana. We worked with colleagues from the Ghana Meteorological, the climatological unit of the Ghana Meteorological Agency, as well as the marine and numerical weather prediction unit of still the Ghana Meteorological Agency in extending the WIDS application, the Weather Information Dissemination System. So some of these services that I'm mentioning, much as we really built them and tested them mostly in East Africa, some of them actually were extended and tested by colleagues in Ghana, as well as colleagues in Nigeria. Nigeria, it wasn't directly with the Met Authority, but it was with the University of Lafayette, as well as LZ University. So these services are not only applicable for use in East Africa. If there is interest by any colleagues from West Africa, they can very much be extended to West Africa as well. I wanted to add that, that we can move to the next slide, and I'll mention why I believe that NRENs can also be leveraged beyond meteorological and climatological research, but also other areas of environmental monitoring. And here I'll just talk about our experiences since 2021 for a sister project called ADEMNIA, standing for the Adaptive Environment Monitoring Network for East Africa. And I am delighted to note that I believe one of our partners is in the room there at WACREN, ICTP Professor Marco Zenaro. We are working with him in building this network, and we are still working with the Research and Education Network for Uganda, because we need to connect through the research infrastructure that RENU has set up to the sensing units, the monitoring units. In this case, we are monitoring the environment, not for meteorological variables, but for variables that would inform us about the health and about the status of insect pollinators and insect pests. So this is really in the working with entomologists as the primary beneficiaries. So setting up bee monitors, setting up insects, fruit fly traps, sensing those kinds of things, sensing using cameras, sensors, using for both image and video and other aspects really that are of interest to entomologists. And in this case, the adaptive network that we are building, much as the application area is slightly different from the one of the weather or the meteorology, it is for purposes of being, the network should be able to support anything else. So the weather information is still very much part of that network, but we have additional sensors that are of use to other areas of environmental monitoring. But the network, the underlying network that we are building should be able, the aim is that it should be able to be as reliable, to be as resilient, to basically to be able to tap into whatever infrastructure is available, be it the regular cellular network. If that is the strongest network that is available, then that is the network we want to use. Or the LoRa network where it's available, and that's why we are very much working with the Research and Education Network for Uganda, because they have currently deployed 5 LoRa stations. On the right, I have a map of those. Several of them are around Kampala, the capital city, the central region, but there are some that are towards the southwestern part of the country, such that we can tap into this because it's a free technology. LoRa is free and long range, so we can be able to broadcast from as some of our stations that are far away. In this particular case, we are monitoring in mostly the fruit growing areas, and as you can imagine, these are really outside the city, remote farms, and but the weather information previously collected, or that continues to be collected from the weather network that was established, as well as the National Meteorological Network itself, is informing. It's part of the information that is necessary to inform the entomologist, in addition to the other elements that are being monitored. So for other environmental monitoring aspects, the NREN still plays a role of connectivity, and in this particular case, your commercial service providers will not go out to deploy LoRa networks because it's low data rates, so it's going to be very low in terms of profits that they can make off them. And it's a free network, they're not paying any license for it. So our only option really is to work with the NRENs whose interest is actually to facilitate research, and still cloud infrastructure for both storage and processing aspects that we can pick from the NREN. So that is what I would say in terms of how the research and education, rather than national research and education networks, can be leveraged for purposes of facilitating research, meteorological research, as well as other environmental monitoring aspects. And given my unique experience, or in this particular example of working with science, still in the ADEMNIA project, we are working with partners in the region, in the East African region, as well as partners in Norway, the Science and Technology University, NTNU, ICTP, I already mentioned Marco Zenaro, and in Tanzania, South Sudan, as well as Makerere University. The experience of working with other African researchers and working in a collaborative effort instead of working as individual in one institution is very enriching, because we realize, for example, if there are policies, limiting policies in one country, and another country breaks through, then we use it as a starting point to engage our policy makers, because we share similarities in terms of the environment. So we are able to challenge our policy makers to facilitate our research faster, and we are also able to handhold each other. For example, what South Sudan was able to achieve may be looked at as much smaller compared to the rest of the partner institutions, but without the involvement of other neighboring partner institutions, their own capacity would not have been developed. The PhD candidates that they got, that graduated, the master's graduates that they got out of these efforts would not have been possible if the number at least wouldn't have been hit. Probably only one would have managed, with the same funds available, only one would have managed to be trained from Europe, but they were able to get like 6 trained from Makerere University. And so, and there's a lot of cross-learning when we work with partners whom we have similar experiences and similar environments, operation environments. So that's what I can say. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Back to you, Chair.
Oh, thank you very much, Julian. Thank you for sharing your experience and also the diversity of application you are deploying in Uganda to show, the importance of having a good NREN. It was very, I would say, inspiring to hear you about the inclusive approach you are deploying to sustain your network and also to support your research. Thank you very much. It was great to hear you. As time is running, I suggest we move to Prof. Kaboba. Prof. Kaboba, are you here?
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me, Chair?
Yeah, very well, very well. Please, you have the floor. Do you have a presentation, or do you have slides or something like that?
No, I think I will just stop because my colleagues have presented quite a lot of material. So I think I would prefer to just talk to them.
Okay, so good. So I give you the floor, and then we come back to the general discussion, right?
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I want to start by saying that one of the critical challenges we face as a region, West Africa, is the issue of capacity when it comes to the skill you need to even analyze, simulate all these different data sets. And let me give an example. I coming from the University of Energy and Natural Resources. You have students taking different programs, but we have not yet come to the level whereby we see programming as a language that must be learned by at least all scientists and engineers. Because I think this is where we lack, I think we really need to look at that, because if somebody is not trained from the bachelor level to understand the basics of these tools, then become very complicated, very difficult to start to take it at a master level or PhD level, and it even becomes impossible if we have to use a WAF model or if we have to talk about HPC, because as you know, the more grown you become, the more difficult it is to really understand some of these things. So one recommendation I will make to WACREN and to the network is to encourage our training institutions to consider programming as a key requirement for us to really lift up all this infrastructure that we have within so far. I think this is a critical requirement that we must look at. Number two, at the University of Energy and Natural Resource, where I have some experience, we set up this center which at least downloads satellite data on a daily basis, and we also have an automatic weather station. But the key challenge we quickly realized was the fact that if you want to buy storage, buy 30 terabytes, within a month it's all filled up, you have power problems, and there are a lot of data gaps. So I think WACREN again can come in to support the research institutions with some level of cloud storage. I think this will really, really be useful. It will help us to already share with the network what is already available. I'm very happy to see what WASCAL is already doing with all this advanced infrastructure that they have. That is, as the director was mentioning, it seems we have not really lifted up this huge infrastructure which is lying down because of the lack of information about it, and also the fact that, as I said, we need to really make use of this programming and ensure that people can have basic interaction when it comes to that. Now, you see, before we can share data, I think we also, maybe through this network, we need to discuss and come out with common standards for data sharing. If I have collected my data, maybe it's every 30 minutes daily for a certain parameter. How do I, in what format do I transmit it such that my other colleague will further understand this data? How do we ensure that agencies are storing the data in a way that if somebody from Ghana shares it with someone in Togo, it becomes easy? We know that the WMO has some protocols, but the experience has shown that when you get to our methods, usually the data is all, most of it is manual, and sometimes the storage formats are different. Different institutions are installing their various automatic weather stations, but what protocols do we put in? How many protocols do we put in to ensure that we can be able to share data alone? Now, the third thing too is that the chairman has mentioned, and some colleagues have mentioned, that when you start to look at research on climate, you will find out that the percentage contribution from Africa is very low. I think this is alarming, and this is a call for caution for us as a continent and also as a region in West Africa, that how do we encourage research institutions and national institutions to really talk better about our own environment? Because we are living in it, we understand it better than any other person. Now, I think this is where we need to again think through and see how can WACREN support research institution in one way or the other in publishing through Scopus, because the standard now is that if your work needs to be referenced, it needs to pop up in a certain database, which is Scopus generally. And generally, we are also faced with a challenge because most of our research, we do very excellent research, but because of sometimes funding issues and even sometimes the ability to package the work in such a way that it is accepted by some of these journals, these are things that we need to think about and see how best can we address some of those issues. Now, the last one I want to share is that I think within the network and also within WACREN, I see a possibility by which we in West Africa can come out with, can think about a way by which we can build a climate reanalysis data hub that we can all rely upon. You see, you want to do climate analysis and always we have to rely on something from Europe or from the US or from Asia or somewhere. It is time, now that we have HPC infrastructure here and there, I think it's time for us to develop our own climate reanalysis hub that we can validate with our knowledge, with our experiences, because I think by so doing, we'll be making an effort to ensuring that we are making footprints as we go along. Because the challenge is that you will find that a lot of our students who want to do research, sometimes because of the challenge of reaching out to the Met offices, they'll come and tell you, the supervisor, that, oh, we want to use NASA power or we want to use some portal somewhere. Then the question is always, how sure are we about these portals that are talking about data about us? So I think if we can develop that portal, maybe with Wascal in the room, Wascal can help us lead the process to help to join with the other university and research institutions and the national offices to see if we can come out with such a thing. Because once we have that, then our postgraduate students can start to reference it. Then by so doing, we are building up a strong reference point by which we can leapfrog on providing access to climate and the weather. Then the last point I want to mention is that we cannot do this without internet connectivity, as what some of our colleagues have mentioned. But the other thing I'm also seeing is that I think it will also be necessary, if, I don't know who will facilitate that, but maybe WACREN again could help us to see if we can do some kind of strength analysis of our various existing institutions. For example, it is possible that for my university, some faculty have some technology that could help to disseminate information from a weather station to a server room by other technology services that are readily, that could be developed. So it is important we look at, for example, the various strengths of the various institutions within the person and see who is doing what, who has what strength, and how do we put our strengths together in trying to ensure that we are able to move forward with research when it comes to climate. And I want to refer back to the WASCA presentation and also my colleague who just finished from East Africa. You will realize that we spend a lot of money sending our students to go to Europe just because of trying to run a simple WAF application or forecast or something like that. So it will also be interesting to find out from WASCA how, if people or if research institutions wants to access this infrastructure, what are the protocols involved? Is it just that you go to the website, you log in and that is it? Or is there a way? Is there some kind of agreement that needs to be signed? In what role can WACREN again play? That WACREN is already, there are a number of institutions that are already signed up. how can we, in one way or other, leapfrog some of these infrastructure which already exist? So I look forward to, as we discuss further, to see how best we can strengthen NRs, ensuring that we are pushing forward the climate and weather process.
Yes, thank you very much, Prof. Kabuba. Very inspiring and very interesting. I think that you raise several issues, that are very important for the discussion we'll have. But before we jump to the discussion, it would be very interesting to hear Umo about, what his feelings, on the potential support we can have from WACREN, regarding all the issues we're raising. So I wonder, Umo, if you can say a few words, how WACREN can support scientists working in the field of, climate and environmental research, but in general, how, what are concrete solutions that WACREN can propose to overcome these issues? Because it's very urgent now. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Aruna. So I will put some perspective into this so that we can sort of grasp the nature of the challenge. So we have seen all the great things that WASCAL does and the great things that's happening in East Africa and how our researchers can work together. There's this discussion about working together in West Africa to actually use models that are actually relevant to our region. At the moment, we're using models made for other regions. So there's work to be done. But let's talk about some of the realities. So WASCAL is a regional center with all those great things. We have another regional center that, unfortunately, the Director General, who should have been on this panel, isn't here. It's the African, it's called ACMAD, the Center for Meteorological Application Development. It's a continental center. There's another center called AGRIMET. Now, both of these centers happen to be in Niger. Again, these are the, you heard, the 5 most affected countries globally. But the capacity, the network capacity that ACMAD has is 4 meg of bandwidth. The capacity at the competence center, this great competence center in Burkina Faso, is 50 meg. So you can start to see what the challenge really is. So nothing that's there is going to be shared. It is not even solely a matter of protocols or being able to model or the HPCs that they already have. It's simply a matter of connectivity to even get some value, real value from what's there. So that's the challenge. That's one area we see that WACREN can help. But it is not a problem for one country. It's almost a regional problem. So the kind of work we're looking at doing is actually sort of solving that problem permanently, because the issue is about taking capacity to those countries in one fell swoop. So WACREN has plans for landlocked hub. It will be the first in the region, but the idea is to extend our backbone into a central location like Burkina Faso, and from that point, serve these countries that border this region. It will cost a lot of money, so we need funding. Some of the conversations we'll have, that's on one side. On the other side, we'll be having some more meetings with the Open Climate Campaign and these gentlemen that lead these organizations, because again, in WACREN, we're looking to support the desire to share and open this data. We need data to drive the agenda in the region. We need to be able to get the formats sort of unified so that we can actually share data. We need to be able to teach the researchers how to create data management plans that allow them to do all of this stuff. And we need storage, huge amounts of it. We know, for instance, that the Ghana Meteorological Services needs like, I think, about a terabit a day of storage. We're not talking HPCs, and we're just talking cloud storage now. We need GPUs. We need graphic processing units for machine learning. We are upgrading the WACREN cloud to take care of some of this. We will need much more upgrade for our storage capacity. We're talking petabytes of storage that we need here. So some of these things, we're going to have to scale up. But from as it is now, we can start to establish the networks, the ways we work, and define the projects that actually solve this problem. ACMAT was going to be presenting on an early warning system that doesn't exist in Africa. And it's unfortunate he couldn't do it himself. I'm not going to be able to do any justice to it, but at some point we'll sort of share that information. But yes, I'm very interested in what Professor Kaboba mentioned, in being able to bring all these agencies together, leverage the network, storage and facilities we can provide to actually start to drive our own climate agenda, especially as we're the most affected. Thank you, Chair. Yes.
Thank you.
And Chair,
thank you.
Chair, if you
Thank
give me a
for this.
moment, it looks like we've interested my CEO in the discussion. He's going to be the 5th panelist.
Yeah, okay. Excellent, excellent. Okay, it was good, yeah.
Sorry, Chair, Aruna, to chip in like this, but you know, I have been following the discussion. You know, I wasn't in the room, but I was following the streaming, and I do think that a lot of challenges have been mentioned. And as almost said, I do think that what we have, or you know, the institutions, you know, we are in contact now, and who really want to do much more than what they are doing now, have really a capacity that is, you know, way, you know, below, you know, what they need. I just want to assure you that WACREN is here really to provide, you know, institutions like WASCAL, AgriMed, SEALS, and ACMAT, you know, the capacity they need, you know, to do the, you know, properly, you know, the work they are doing. Because as almost said, you know, we have capacity, and we are upgrading our infrastructure, you know, and whatever we are doing is actually for the benefit of the end users. And the end users, you know, what we are talking about now are the researchers, you know, and we do think that what is actually on the ground is, you know, not, you know, what, you know, they should have. They should have much more, and we are committed at WACREN, you know, to provide the infrastructure they need, you know, for research, you know, that is really competitive worldwide. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. It's very interesting to hear you, and you know, to hear your commitment to support the African scientists and the regional med centers. There is another effort also to do to see how we can connect the African HPC. You know, I mean, managing HPC, high performance computing system, is very complicated and new in Africa. So you need to take care and see how we can network all those, you know, facilities to have real clouds. You know, to avoid duplicating things and so on. So as I said previously, what I suggest is just we take few questions from the participants, and then, you know, we'll come back to the panelists, and, you know, so that we can close the session, because we were supposed to stop at 4, and now we are running past at 24. So let's take, I would say, almost 4 questions, please. 4 questions, and then we come back to the panelists, right? So if someone is in the room, maybe he can help me to take the questions. I don't see the participants. Yeah, but
yes.
Great. Now,
so Aruna, I will do that. So can we have the camera on the participants? Are there any questions in the room, as the chair has requested? Right. Hello. Do you have a mic for the? There's one question there. Do you have a mic for him? And there's one here. So we can take those two, and there's one here.
Thank you very much. Yeah, please introduce yourself first and just ask your question. We are a bit late.
Hello.
Try to be brief, you know, in your question. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is George from Datasphere. I will pose my question to Juliana. She mentioned that there was a point where she had to get buy-in from policymakers. I would like her to expand, give us more details on how she got buy-in from the policymakers, what step she took to do that. Thank you.
So, Chair, maybe we take all the questions at the same time, then we respond to them. So the second question. Second question is there. Do you have a mic? Please use the mic in front of you.
Okay, thank you. I am Abdraman Dumbia, WASCAL alumni. I have a question for Juliana. Especially, she mentioned that they store the data and process using cloud services. I want to know, is the same cloud service they use for storage and also for the processing? If it's okay, which cloud service specifically? Thank you.
Good. There's a third question there. We'll take it.
Hello. Yeah, can you hear me? Okay. Questions for Professor Gunjobi. You mentioned about the hydro stations and weather stations. I think 50 and 60 of one or the other, and you talked about the lack of density of weather stations across the region. So my question is, I think Julian referred to the cost of weather stations being about $2,000. So my question is, are there other kind of low-cost devices or open citizen science type solutions that could provide the kind of data that you need for analysis?
Thank you. There's one last question I'll take. It's at the corner, then we'll stop.
All right, thank you. My name is Paul Safo from Cape Coast Technical University. And from the presenters, I deduce that there's a lot that we from the IT and computer science can offer for this meteorological research. And I think when we come together, we can also bring something on board. So what I saw from their website, when they're making call for PhD and all this thing, they seem not to invite those from computer science and IT. All I saw was the electrical engineers and so on. So I think we need more collaboration between data scientists, big data specialists, and so on, so that we can build our own, repository, so that we can, archive all our data and also find a way to share them. So I think the computer scientists and data scientists need to collaborate with them, and I think we can go a long way to bring some of these things under control. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, Aruna. Questions over.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Omo. Thank you for your question. So I noted that we have 2 questions for Julian, 1 question for Prof. Ugunjobi, and the last question I think that Professor Kaboba can answer it, about the synergy between computing sciences and data sciences, the issue of repository, and it is also true for the, publication data in Scopus and so on and so on. So please, you have the floor, Juliana.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much, audience, for those questions. I'll start by answering the question on getting the buy-in from the policymakers, and I'll give one illustration on that. For the weather information dissemination system, much as most of the development effort was taking place in Uganda at Makerere University, Tanzania got a very quick buy-in to deploy this system. For some reason, the Met Agency had already been running with the idea of a dissemination system, and when the project proposed this to them, or when the project made mention its objectives and mentioned this as one of the objectives, they said, we wanted this as soon as yesterday. And so they pushed for it. The government, the Met Agency is a government entity, so they pushed for it and not the research institution. They pushed for it, and within a year, they already had users with it. So with this kind of result, for us in Makerere, we were able to really knock hard on the doors for our Minister for ICT. And we went with the Met Agency now. We went with the Met Agency because, meteorological agencies for some reason are very, very international. I mean, the first saying I had when I got into that community was, weather has no boundaries. So they collaborate a lot. So when the Tanzania Met Agency was really pushing for this, and in the international meetings, even the Ugandan Meteorological Authority realized that, Tanzania was really taking off with this. So for us as researchers, we just had more willing partners to advocate with the ministry, and that was able to also help us fast track getting that service to the people on the last mile. What I didn't say, as much as I mentioned some of the numbers, the last count monthly subscribers, they were actually subscribers from all the districts in the country. So it was like in every region there was demand for this, which was very, very satisfying for us as the researchers that had developed that service. My second question was about the cloud for storage and the cloud for processing. What I can say is that, right now we use the Renu cloud, but it's only possible to do storage. So my mentioning for processing, so we use the Renu cloud, and the service we get is storage really. And we are in talks for it to be able to also do processing. For processing, we still use the commercial service from Amazon Web Service, but we know that the NREN if the NREN rolls out that service, it will be cheaper for us, and it will be better because the data will be local. It will be easier for us to own it. So we are still in talks with both Renu and actually also talks with the Alliance, because the Ubuntu Net Alliance in our case is also rolling out cloud services. So we don't yet have a local NREN supported service for processing. Those were the two questions addressed to me, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gillian. Professor Ogunjobi, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. And also thank you very much for your questions and the interest in our presentation. A simple automatic weather station, for example, that you get from Kips and Sonin, or from Campbell, or from NASA, with about 6 to 8 sensors, temperature, relative humidity, sunshine hour, rainfall. 6 to 8 sensors will cost about $10,000 to $15,000. $10,000 to $15,000. But using the Internet of Things, which WACREN is trying to introduce now, and which we just got some training on in a couple of days, it's fascinating to see that the cost of a sensor could go as cheap as $70 to $80. $70 to $80. It conserves energy, it saves costs, easy to even store than using the conventional automatic weather station. So, straight answer to the question, yes. And I think that's why we are leveraging with experts like you and also with WACREN to now see how we can leverage on IoT and digital infrastructure in order to densify the existing network that we're having using these expensive, out-of-reach facilities that are all over the place. Now, there's a question of WMO accreditation or standardization of the output or the values that is getting now from this cheap equipment. But I think this is an area we can work with you in order to improve on the calibration of this simple sensor. I'm not sure whether some of you are aware of this thermal sensor that are also competing well with all these international hydrometeorological manufacturers. But over the time, TAMO has increased on the acceptability of its data, even by the World Meteorological Organization. So these are things that I think we can leverage and work with you on to see. But to answer your question, yes, ICT, IoT are things that we can work with WACREN and see how we can use, which is extremely cheaper than the conventional meteorological instrumentation. Yes, sir. On the need to collaborate with experts, I think if I get the question right from, yes, and this is the reason why WASCAL, for example, is very excited about this workshop, and we quickly jumped on it when I met Omo, and he introduced me to this, because we think from the pool of experts from here, we can begin now to collaborate with WACREN and work with your expertise in building these capacities together. Like I told you, we have is a whole school at PhD level in University of Joseph Kizebro in Ouagadougou. And of course, we might be working with the chief executive of WACREN to see your pool of expertise, where we can then invite you to join us in teaching, in project supervision, for example. In developing, I think one of our panelists even mentioned the fact that we need to come together and build our own model. These are models that, look, we go and work with WRF. I work so much with some model. I'm very experienced with WRF, with RateCM, but you wouldn't have access to the code itself. And the dynamics they use in Europe, in the US to build this is quite different from the dynamics and meteorology that we're having in West Africa. And I think nobody understands our dynamics in terms of meteorology and climate as much as we do. So we need to really come together, develop this, and we need your expertise. Of course, like I said, meteorologists alone, climate scientists might not be able to achieve all this without working with ICT, with computer scientists. So we really need to know your pool of expertise. So please open it up to us so that we can work together. I mentioned, about the climate school on climate change and informatics. We have the climate change on West African climate system, climate change and biodiversity, climate change and energy in Abdul Mumuni University in Niamey. All these we believe we can all work together, to achieve the needs for climate experts in our region. Access to the HPC at the Competence Center, like I said, it pains me when I see the budget we are spending every year in our HPC at the Competence Center and being underutilized. So please, our HPC, we are willing, very much willing and open, and willing to open it up to you, to our colleagues, to scientists, to ICT experts. Please, we are willing, as small as it is a huge resource that we can use together to achieve solutions into climate. So we are willing to open it up. Dr. Belko is there, our system administrator. We give you an open access to it. You can have some portion of we can partition the system and make you work, depending on the work you want to submit on our HPC. We can allocate 2 nodes to you, 3 nodes, depending on how large the data you want to work. So it's open to you, to your students, to partners, to scientists, to stakeholders within the region so that we can build this together. On the openness of data that is said by Omo, yes, this is another area that we are working, we are looking at. And we are ready to walk the walk with you as much as any length you want to get to make sure that we begin to open our data, to climate scientists, to computer scientists, to students in order to achieve this dream together. So we are in this together, and I want to assure the CEO of WACREN that yes, we are looking forward to collaborating with you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Professor Gunjobi. I have to remember your last name. I get very used to calling your first name. So I think I hear Aruna sort of disconnected. One of the challenges of in the region, God knows, he's certainly not using a WACREN connection. But yeah, so I think it's a good time to call this session, bring this session to an end. We are a few minutes behind on the next session, and I can see Professor Taylor is itching to get up here. So I think, thank you very much, Professor Gujobi. Thank you very much to the speakers online. Can we see them? Arona's back. Oh, well, even if he's not back, thank you very much, Arona. Did you? Great moderating. I think everybody's back now, I think. Even me. Thank you very much, Julian. Thank you very much, Amos. It's been really great even discussing and planning for this session, and I'm really looking forward to taking this onwards. Thanks a lot.
So I think we can start the third session right away. But before, let me just put across this announcement. This evening we are going to Plus 233 Jazz and Grill Bar. And earlier I announced that those at the gallery, you go and then you come there straight, but it has changed. All of us are going to be here and all of us will go.